Welcome back. This is Newsroom. People from 44 cities around the world will tomorrow march against lion trophies in the growing canned hunting industry. The global march has been initiated by South African wildlife activists to highlight the plight of lions caught up in the canned hunting industry. There are fewer than 4,000 lions left in the wild here in South Africa, but more than 8,000 are in captivity, being bred for the bullet or the arrow. Now, to talk about the big march in Cape Town tomorrow against canned hunting, we are joined in Cape Town by the Director of Frontline, Dr Peter Hammond, and the Director of Four Paws Animal Welfare Foundation, Fiona Miles. Good morning, and thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Dr Hammond, if I can start with you and just tell us a little bit about tomorrow's event.
Tomorrow we're going to be marching for lions against this absolute national scandal of canned lion hunting. We're starting at 10:30 outside the Cape Town Technicon and marching from Kaiserkroeg Street through to Parliament. The important thing is to stop this plundering of our wildlife resources, allowing this corruption of canned lion hunting. I don't know what hunter can find any honour or any challenge in shooting a captive lion specifically bred for hunting in a effectively limited, restricted area. They either are some circus lions that have been retired or some lions that have been bred in captivity. And this is an absolute disgrace and scandal. And to think that we're allowing foreigners to come in and plunder our wildlife resources, this has to stop.
Fiona, if I can bring you in. Terrible practice it is, but just tell us, how many lions do we have, or how many lions in South Africa are waiting for the bullet right now?
In South Africa, there are more than 8,000 lions in captivity. They are specifically being bred to be hunted, to be shot, to be traded, to be manhandled and cuddled. And these animals are living a life of complete suffering. They are born, they are taken away from their mothers at a very young age after 1 or 2 days. They are used for the joy of cuddling with, and people are coming in from overseas. They're paying a lot of money to be conned. They are convinced that these animals are orphaned. They are being convinced that these animals are actually going to be reintroduced back into the wild. And of course, that is not the case. Once they get too big to be manhandled, they are then sold on for further breeding or for hunting.
What kind of what kind of further revenues, Dr Hammond, do you get from these kinds of... Is it a fact that lion bones are now being sold on in China and the Far East as well? Is that the trade that sort of adds on?
This is an industry, it's a corrupt, cruel industry, and we're afraid that, yes, there's every kind of exploitation, abuse, from the cynical, come and cuddle a lion for conservation, whereas actually these lions are actually being bred for trophy hunting in restricted areas, to people who now want to give themselves the impression that I'm a lion hunter. What is the challenge? It's like shooting fish in a barrel. These lions are not wild, they're effectively tame.
It's pathetic, really,
yes,
to be honest.
They are being sold.
It's pathetic.
There's all kinds of sales, especially in Asia, of lion products. So this is a corrupt thing. Basically, we see our natural resource is being plundered. A live lion is more valuable to the South African economy in tourism and job creation than a dead lion for some trophy hunter.
Now, Fiona, tomorrow a memorandum will be handed over to government officials, I understand. What do you hope to achieve with this? And also tell us your engagements with government on this. It's been banned in other countries and in other parts of the world. What is the engagement locally?
I think there's very, very little support locally. The government has not been interested in addressing the situation formally and properly, and looking at a long-term sustainable solution for more than 8,000 animals. This is a huge amount and a huge number of animals. There's no magic wand that will be waved and suddenly the situation will be fixed. But there has to be a very clear commitment from government to take this matter on, to face it head on, and to support the organizations that are now standing together to say that we cannot allow this suffering to go on for these animals any longer. It is an absolute shame, and South Africa is renowned for its beautiful heritage, for its wonderful wildlife, and that is something that the government now needs to invest its resources in. And there are many people, including a huge number of millions of people around the world, who would support South Africa and support the government in taking a firm decision to end the suffering for these animals.
Dr. Hammond, just carry on and tell us about the sort of threat that lion farming has to wild lion species and prides and so forth.
It is a terrible threat because what we're seeing is the same kind of plundering of our natural resources as with the rhino disaster. It's an absolute scandal to think that we've gone from 7 rhinos being poached in the year 2000 to over 1,000 last year. And the wildlife conservation experts I speak to on the ground are outraged. They are convinced there is corruption to a high level. And that's also true for the canned lion hunting. Just as we're seeing the rhinos being wiped out, we're seeing wild lions being wiped out because the people moving these lions into this industry of cuddling for foreigners and then shooting for trophies, this is basically depleting our natural resource of lions. We've now got double the amount of lions in captive programs in South Africa as in the wild, and that is an absolute scandal.
Thank you very much for joining us today, Director of Frontline, Dr. Peter Hammond, and the Director of Four Paws Animal Welfare Foundation, Fiona Miles. People from 44 cities around the world will tomorrow march against lion trophies in the growing canned hunting industry. Well, all around the world. It is 44 cities after all. Time now for us to take a look at what's been happening online, and it's been another bit of